think I will take the opportunity to start this Municipal Planning Commission meeting. Call to order, May the 11th, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone here today. And we have lots of visitors, so let's start with a round of introductions. Neil, would you start us off?
Amanda Philpott, Division 8, Duchess.
Ellen Unruh, and I represent the area around the village of Rosemary.
Hi, I'm Greg Screever, Division 5, Lake New Resort and Castles.
Morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman, and I will chair the meeting today, and I'm from the west side of the county around the town of Bassano.
Good morning, I'm Arno Dirksen from the GEM area, Division 9, Riva the County.
Good morning, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, Adina Scandrup, Division 2, the Tilly area.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dan Short from Division 1, Rolling Hills.
Hi, nice to see you all. I'm Division 3. I'm Lynette Kopp, which is the Millicent Patricia area.
Cheryl.
Good morning, Cheryl Page, Planning and Development Assistant.
Good morning, Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Good morning, Sandra Stanway Brooks Bulletin.
Development Clerk.
Zachary Forrest, Planning and Development Intern.
Great, thank you. And we have a microphone there. Shanna Lee, if you would pass it amongst our, the cordless one is there too, Jeff, and I'm told that it does work in our virtual world. It may not work in this room, but it works in our virtual. Oh, okay. All right. We will do it this way.
I'm Jeff Tiffin, manage the Plan and Developments and Engineering Department, and I'll just pass this around. Speak into the microphone, please.
My name is Connell Archer. I'm one of the representatives of the Homeowners Association at Sandpiper Estates at Lake Newell Resort.
Arnold Ho for Newell Colony.
Doug Woodsky, Smith Group.
Bryce Erzada, Lake Newell Resort.
Margaret Erzada, just visiting my son.
Morning. Harold Stedel, resident of Tilly.
Morning. Jay Phillipson, resident of the county.
Barry Flood, President of Romantic Cremation Services.
Jeremy Hardy, resident of Lake Newell Resort.
Greg Hardy, Lake Newell Resort.
Resort.
Todd Beasley, Lake Newell Resort.
Jamie Nesbitt, Lake Newell Resort.
Holly Hafsel, Lake Newell Resort. Sabina Endersby, Lake Newell Resort.
Bill Endersby, Lake Newell Resort.
Kim McClellan, Lake Newell Resort.
Alma Grobelar, Lake Newell Resort.
Clyde Carr with Estes Power.
Eric Hugel, Sandpiper Storage.
Mark Harvick, Director of Municipal Services.
Great, thank you. And welcome to everyone. We have a full council today. MPC is all at the table, so nobody needs to be excused. Minutes from our April 20th Planning Commission meeting are in your agendas. How do you wish to handle them? Holly.
A motion acceptance of the minutes.
Holly has made a motion to accept. Is there any other comments, concerns? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. The agenda is here for your consideration. How do you wish to handle the agenda? Arno?
Move to approve the agenda, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. We have a development report in our agenda, permitted use, April 1st to the 30th. Are there any questions for Shanna Lee on this report? Fairly short one. I will accept it for information then, Shanna Lee, seeing no questions. Moving on to 7.1. 7.1, subdivision 2023 0-005. Who wishes to handle this? Zachary, you're here to do that. Thank you.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
So subdivision application 2023 0-005. Proposal is to subdivide a 42.4 hectare or 104.7 acre parcel from the southwest 42318 west of 4 for the purpose of developing a Class 2 landfill in industrial use. The proposed subdivision is in Division 9, adjacent to Range Road 184, and approximately 9.7 kilometers north of the Trans-Canada Highway. Review the Alberta wetland inventory indicates there are several noted wetlands present on the parcel. There are no environmentally or historically significant areas within the subject parcel. Information has been submitted from the AER indicating that there are 2 abandoned wells on the parcel. Both are located within the boundaries of the proposed subdivision. The southern boundary of the proposed subdivision follows the northern edge of the utility right-of-way, which is registered under Plan 801-1319. For context, this subject parcel recently went through a land use amendment, changing from agricultural general district to the industrial general district, and the proposed subdivision aligns with the boundaries of that land use amendment. There were no comments received from adjacent landowners. TELUS, ATCO Gas, ATCO Transmission High Pressure Pipelines responded they had no concerns, and Alberta Transportation and Alberta Health Services had supplied the attached letters. Comment from Alberta Health Services indicated that the county ensures that the landfill is not sited within 450 meters of a drinking water well, and the nearest water source, i.e. a residence, to the proposed subdivision is located approximately 2,000 meters away. Conditions to be considered: that all outstanding property taxes shall be paid, the applicant enter into a development agreement with the county, and that the applicant supplies copies of any utility right-of-ways, agreements, and like for any affected utilities to the county. Reserve is not required as per MGA 663A. And the recommendation for the subdivision is that we approve MPC approve with conditions for the following reasons: that it is consistent with the SSRP and complies with the county's NDP and land use bylaw. And subdivision authority satisfy that the proposed subdivision is suitable for the purpose as set and intended by the subdivision and development regulations. So I would take any questions.
Thank you, Zachary. Are there questions on this subdivision application? Ellen.
I noticed that there are wetlands on the property. Is that a concern?
At the subdivision stage, I would not say it's a concern. It will be at the whenever a development comes forth for the parcel that those can be considered.
Good question, thank you. How do you wish to handle this application? Arno?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? All in favor of Arno's motion to approve? Any opposed? That is carried. Moving along to our development permits, 8.1. This is the riding arena. Zachary, you'll handle this?
I'll handle this one again, yes.
Thank you.
Development permit 2023-020. This application is to provide approval for the construction of a 669 square meter or 7,200 square foot private riding arena for residential use. Riding arena being private, it is not intended to be used for boarding horses or for a business. Parcel is located 3.2 kilometers south of the village of Dutchess in Division 8. In the agriculture small lot district of the land use bylaw, riding arena requires a permit, and as a discretionary use, it must be approved by MPC. Recommendation here is that MPC approve the development permit for the construction of this private riding arena, subject to the conditions that will be outlined below. And the recommendation is that MPC approve this for the following reasons: that it complies with the MDP, that it is suitable for the purpose for which it is intended in the land use bylaw, and no objections have been received from adjacent landowners or referral agencies with respect to the proposed development. Previous council direction here, a land use amendment was approved back on March 9th to redesignate the subject parcel from the residential rural district to the agricultural small lot district to accommodate this development. And to note from the planning discussion, there is an access easement on title granting a right-of-way for the road in common adjacent with the parcel to the south. No variances are required for this development, and all existing developments on the property have the relevant development permits for them. The response options for MPC here are option 1 to approve, 2 to refuse, or 3 to table the decision. And the conditions of the approval are that it is effective as of June 1st, 2023. It must be located as shown on the site plan. It must obtain all construction permits. Any additional development to require separate development permit approval. And that the property is not used for conducting a business or commercial operation. And that minimum distance of 100 meters from any gas or oil well is maintained. And all setbacks are maintained from adjacent properties, and that the developer must start construction prior to June 1st, 2024. I would take any questions on this application.
Thank you. Are there questions, comments? How do you wish to handle this application? Adina.
Sorry, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead with this subdivision.
Option 1?
Option 1, yes, sorry.
With conditions as laid out. Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor of this motion? That is carried. Moving along, 8.2. Go ahead, Shanley.
Thank you. Development permit 2023022 is for the operation of a self-storage business and the construction of a storage building in the hamlet of Lake Newell Resort. The parcel was rezoned in 2022 from Special Parks and Public Service to Business Hamlet District to allow for the proposed development self-storage business. This was outlined for this parcel in the Lake Newell Area Structure Plan adopted in 2003. At this time, there will be no outdoor storage and the area will not be fenced. In the future, should the applicants include outdoor storage, they will construct a chain link fence with privacy slats to ensure security and that the lot remains aesthetically pleasing. The applicants have submitted a photo of the building and the colors chosen to complement the neighborhood. It's included in your package. The applicants have not requested any variances. There was no issues or concerns from staff. Stuart Lucci, who is our regional fire chief, provided a written response. There was several responses from adjacent landowners included in your package. Their concerns include aesthetics, property value, safety, traffic, and environmental risks. We're recommending approval with conditions, and Mr. Hugel is here to answer questions.
Thank you, Shanley. Mr. Hugo, would you like to come forward? just so you're handy for any questions that MPC will have. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Hugo on this application? Greg.
Hi, Eric. Can you just give us a kind of a rundown of the building structure? What the we do have pictures and we do have sizing and things, but what your plan is with respect to roof slopage, doors, type of use, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So we've been in contact with Armor Building. So they're the ones who've done the design for this building, and we've been working with them. So it'll be 145 feet long, 35 feet deep, 16 feet at the front, 13 feet at the back. And so that gives you, it's kind of one grade all the way across. In terms of usage, we're looking at residents who want indoor storage, whether that be for RVs, boats, whatever personal use they feel is necessary. Again, we feel that's not a service that's currently at Lake Newell Resort. Each bay will be lined, individual bays. The doors, as you can kind of see in the sketch there, white doors, the colors we've chosen are as in the design there, just to blend in with community standards throughout Lake Newell Resort. It'll be a powered building. Beyond that, nothing else in there, just so residents have lights, or sorry, users would have lights in their base. We see it as, again, 10 bays. Shouldn't be too busy, given that it's a storage facility and not a large commercial development. So hopefully it gives you a better idea.
I have a question. Have you met and had conversation around this proposal with your HOA?
Sorry, are you referring to the Sandpiper Estates HOA?
Yes, I believe so.
No, I have not.
Okay.
And I can give you a little background on that as to why.
Okay.
So after we purchased the lot, we were sent an unsolicited letter by Sandpiper Estates HOA director stating that, and I believe the letter has been included in here, that we were not part of the HOA and were not expected to pay fees as a result of that. So it was our understanding that we were not part of the HOA. Further, if you look into the HOA bylaws, their definitions contradict with what our lot is in terms of the definitions of a lot being with a residential dwelling, the collection of fees applying to a residential dwelling. So it was our understanding that they sent us this letter given that contradiction and that we were not part of the HOA as they stated.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this point? Holly.
One of the concerns that's raised is how this building is not going to fit in with the community. Are you willing to look at different outside material or different ways to make it blend in, if that's the way they want to go?
I think from a cost standpoint, looking at other materials and building a commercial structure, it makes it really tough to make this viable. We're already looking at a fairly lengthy payback period, given that, given the size of our land and what we, reasonably could do with it. Like if we're building a small building, well, small by our land's definition. It takes up 13% of our acre. So at this point, no, it wouldn't be cost effective for us to look at other options. And again, we've chosen colors. We're paying more for those colors and more for the roof color to match in the building. So at this point, no, we probably wouldn't look at any other outside exterior materials for the building.
Okay, you have a follow-up, Holly.
So if you're saying using a fairly small portion of that lot, is there a reason you haven't started with a larger building to start with, or what was the reason for that size?
We felt this was a good size to start with, and you know, in terms of the lot, like my wife and I are residents out there as well. We didn't want to see some monstrosity out there. We didn't want to see outdoor storage as well either. We don't live too far from that lot. We think it's a reasonable building that's you know, a compromise between what we would like to see on that lot and some of the concerns of those opposed.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. I'll let you retire to the audience. We have some folks in the audience, I know, who would like to come to the microphone, so I will open it up to anybody who would like to come forward and speak either for or against the application. Mr. Beasley, good morning.
Madam Chair. Pardon me? You guys got to forgive me. I find myself at 60 years old all of a sudden losing my hearing. I don't know what happened. I was 18 yesterday and suddenly I'm old, gray and round. But Madam Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. Councillors, administration staff, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. So we all remember our community. If we think back 20, 30, 40 years ago, this used to be a place where we had water canals everywhere. And at the end of the day, the County of Newell has tightened all of that water up. But at that point in time, we had species that were in this community that were nothing short of amazing. We had pheasants everywhere. We had frogs. We had amphibians. We had all kinds of very special birds that came into our community. When I became aware of this development, one thing that I want to point out or start out by pointing out with is if you will look at the perimeter of the development, what you'll notice is you'll notice a drainage ditch. That drainage ditch in this particular development on three sides, it is around the circumference of the proposed development. That drainage ditch communicates directly with wetlands directly adjacent to the main inlet at the canal. Now that's a particularly interesting water body in that it doesn't freeze subsurface. It doesn't freeze to ground in the wintertime because of the Lake Newell water level. And as a result of that, there's something that I think you need to be aware of in your decision-making processes. And quite frankly, I think the proponent needs to be made aware of. I had a number of biologists come from the University of Alberta a couple of years back, and they stayed at my home, and they were very, very passionate about a species at risk called the northern leopard frog. We might have remembered, if you've lived in the community, you might have remembered these little frogs. They're becoming very, very rare. And what she told me, what they told me, and I was absolutely astounded, is that in those waterways, the northern leopard frog is present. Sometimes it's present in greater volumes than other volumes, and at the end of the day, it is a very rare species. If the councillors and the administrators were to do a quick perusal of Alberta Environmental Protection, alberta.ca, if you were to look at canada.ca, and if you were to Google the northern leopard frog, what you'll find is that its habitat is now designated as species at risk, and at the end of the day, we have a significant loss because of trace pollutants that ultimately will enter into a body of water. We are blessed in the County of Newell that the Lake Newell is recognized as some of the purest water south of Red Deer. And as a result of that, these species still have a chance to thrive and for us to keep them for a legacy for our children and grandchildren. I believe fundamentally we're stewards of many of the things that we're doing in our lifetime. Now, what I'm concerned about when I hear the proponent speak is he uses words like shouldn't be, the viability. He questions the viability of his development in the context of what he's initially asking for your approval on. 13% of the building is ultimately taking up the space that he has the rights to. For now, we won't have outdoor storage. Well, when I hear the words viability is in question and only using 13%, what I'm comfortable in saying that at some point in the future, there will be an additional request to expand the use of this land. Now, the leopard frog itself is able to migrate up to 150 feet, so it's not a huge mover in this area. I believe that all wetlands surrounding Lake Newell should be designated as protected to some extent or the other, but in particular, this particular wetland, because of its adjacent nature to the main inlet of the lake. And if you look at that drainage line that's coming around the perimeter of that site, it is within 50 to 75 yards of direct communication. There's no valves, there's no dams, there's no nothing. These amphibians that are living in that body of water are susceptible to trace pollutants, and I'm talking parts per billion, and their viability is in question. So if somebody parks something in there, because it's light industrial, I recognize and I probably accept that we're not going to see 100 vehicles a day, but we are going to see traffic in that location. Now, if those vehicles are leaking oil, if those vehicles are leaking anything from storage that they're going to put into those buildings, if you allow at a later date to have the proponent to increase the usage of that site beyond the 13%, what ultimately it does is it presents a risk of trace impurities in a heavy rain environment to get directly into that ditch. It's within 10 feet or 10 yards. 3 sides, it's on perimeter, and it is directly communicating with those wetlands where the northern leopard frog is present. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on and on in terms of the studies that have been done, and it's without question that these species are in these bodies of water. They will migrate. Sometimes they will stay under the soil or under the mud, and they won't come up for 4 or 5 or 6 years. But all of a sudden, the circumstances will be right, and up they'll come, and they'll breed, and they'll ultimately propagate for the next generation. If we allow light industrial at that location in particular, quite frankly, I think we're doing a huge disservice for those that comes next, and I don't think that we're the stewards of the land that we possibly should be. I'm not against development. In fact, I'm pro-development, but not at that location. That location represents risk that, quite frankly, it is not worth it. Okay. So I would ask you to consider deeply. I would ask you to review Alberta Environment, Species at Risk Act, Canada Environment, and at the end of the day, you can confirm for yourself that these creatures are here and they are absolutely in danger and at risk. I would implore you to deny this development permit for those reasons. Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for coming forward today.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on the application? Sure, Mr. Archer.
Thanks.
And we do have letters of information from both yourself and Mr. Beasley. So do you have new information today?
The 2 letters, have you all had a chance to review them?
We have.
Okay.
We have them in our packages, absolutely.
Okay, do you have any questions for me with respect to those documents? In terms of any concerns with respect to the sections that I quoted within the bylaw? Any questions with respect to the plan for development from 2003 and how it's out of date, needs to be refurbished and re-looked at?
And just for information's sake, every time a development permit is received anywhere in the county, the ASP is reviewed. So it has been reviewed. It has not been updated. That I will grant you.
Okay, just a couple extra issues with respect to that. There's not going to be a golf course out there.
Okay.
There's not going to be a campground out there, ever. There's just no interest in that.
So residents of the area can request an update at any time, and but we're not talking about that today.
Of course, yeah. It's kind of background to the entire thing here because that whole area was designated as a storage area. So, you know, we don't like the fact that it was designated, and we don't think it's really applicable to refer. But I mean, that's just an opinion. And with respect to, I think, you know, one thing that, is it Mr. Hugel? Or,
Sorry?
I haven't had a chance to speak to, or nobody really has had a chance to sit down and speak with Mr. Hugo about this situation. But the main thing is that we do have an encumbrance and we do have a restrictive covenant on that land. Now,
When you say we, you mean?
The homeowners association.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking on behalf of the homeowners association with this. So that being said, we do have a legal right to discuss with him and have him abide by our architectural controls. That being said, the encumbrance that is on there, the restrictive covenant, in fact, that is on there, is designed for a residential lot, which is what Mr. Hugo was saying. So we need to update that as a homeowners association and get that on the title of the property instead of what's there. And we were unaware that we had any legal interest in that property as a homeowners association because the developer at the time did not tell anybody. He just put it on there. So the homeowners association would like to be involved with this build and would like to create applicable architectural controls for this light industrial site. We need the time to do that. So it's our proposition here that the first thing that should be done is I don't think a decision should be made today. First of all, we would like Mr. Hugo to and other investors to come forward to the community and discuss this with us directly. And that's allowable within the bylaw. You guys can insist on that. Secondly, I think that's just an appropriate thing to do. Just the email that Ms. Hapso sent over there with respect to cutting the lawn and not having an interest in that property. Again, we were unaware at the time that we had this land title encumbrance and restrictive covenant. So it would be our perspective, and I think that we need more time to discuss this with the landowner and our homeowners association, because we have 68 people that signed a petition that they are just to show you guys that we don't want this building there, that we don't need another storage facility there, and that we don't want something that's going to ultimately end up like the storage facility that has been on the north side of the property that is full of sea cans and boats and fish shacks, and it just looks terrible over there. The fellow over there put some trees up around, but really there's no irrigation to it, so they haven't grown all that well, so it's really not covered. Now, you guys are also giving us some money. I think it's about $18,000 in grant money that we can apply to putting trees and bushes perhaps along the back length of that here, but it's going to take 10, 15 years for anything to grow there to make things comfortable. And then the other issue is
if I could just stop you there. You are paying the $18,000. We are all paying as taxpayers, okay? It's not the county. You are part of the county, okay?
Okay.
And so I just want to clarify that. It's your tax dollar at work.
Of course, yeah, I never thought of that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just got my tax bill, which was reasonable. So, so I think we just oppose the development permit right across the board with everything that I've said in the two letters. And I think at the very minimum, we need to put this off for the 3 months that you guys are allowed to put this off, so that we can discuss what's going to go there and what it's going to look like and what requirements we're going to need, if anything is going to go there, as part of a homeowners association.
Okay. Question. Arno.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question with regard to how recently that particular lot changed hands. That was sold by public sale when?
It was in the spring, I believe, that it was sold.
Quite recently, right? As a storage facility, right? 2021, it's sold as designated as a storage as a space for storage. Is that correct?
So if you would like to speak, come to the microphone, please. The question was, it was sold as a storage unit, is that correct?
Well, yes, it was on the market, on the public market as sold, designated as a storage facility or site within the community, I believe. Is that, or is that inaccurate?
So I'll just get
Maybe
you
Jeff
to
has, yeah.
introduce yourself and then speak just for our virtual listeners, because they only see the back of your head. So I need you to say your name before you speak. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that question with any degree of certainty. It sounds like that's what may have happened. The applicant might be able to have a better answer to that question on what was advertised. I believe it was sold at auction, and how the advertising was listed for that property.
Bill Endersby, Director for Sandpiper Homeowners Association, also a Director for Lake Newell Resort Association. Didn't the county, after the sale took place, didn't the county redesignate the, I'm not sure what it was, but you redesignated it to light industrial. So when it was purchased, it was not purchased under light industrial. Is that correct?
I think we'll call up the home or the property owner to clarify this, under what grounds he purchased. In the meantime, I see staff are scrambling to get the answer to your question. Mr. Hugel, please.
Yeah, as Mr. Tiffin said, when the property was purchased, it was advertised as a storage lot. And that was something that came up in that last rezoning hearing. And the county did go back to the area structure plan to verify that. And I think that is what precipitated the eventual rezoning to business hamlet. So yes, it was advertised as a storage lot. It did get rezoned based on what was put in the area structure plan.
Great. Jeff, did you want to back that up? I see you nodding.
Yeah, Mr. Hugel's correct. It was June 9th, 2022. There was a land use amendment approved for redistricting from, what was it, Parks and Public Service District to Business Hamlet.
And that was to put it in line with our area structure plan, which is a statutory document within.
That was to facilitate the ability to develop as per the statutory plan in effect.
Thank you. All right. I have a question. So that was a year ago, June 2022. June 2022. So I'm wondering why the timeline. We're almost a year away, a year from then. What took the HOA a year to come forward or to reach out? Either way, Mr. Hugel, HOA people, can you answer that? Because the miscommunication here is obvious to me. Neil, you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with what you said exactly. And it's at the point we're at right now, the HOA and the developer haven't even had a meeting. And these people all have concerns. You have concerns. You did buy a lot that's developable. They, from some of their letters, have a little bit of room to move. But until that meeting happens, I really,
well,
I can't even decide on this one.
I would like to hear from the two parties. I'll start with Mr. Hugel, landowner. Why have you not reached out to the HOA? And then I'm going to put you, Mr. Archer, on the spot and answer the same question, okay?
Yeah, so again, when we purchased the lot and we received the letter, so it was our understanding that we were not a part of the HOA, so we didn't feel it was necessary to reach out to them in any capacity. And then, you know, and that was a couple of years ago, so time has passed. Now we have this development permit in, and then, you know, we didn't find out about this until this time as well, when we got copies of the letters that the HOA had an interest in it. So we were kind of a little caught off guard by this as well. So,
so you were not privy to the meetings that the HOA have had over this conversation?
No, this is all, it was news to me when I received the package as well. So in terms of reaching out, I had no reason to.
Okay, Mr. Archer. Your microphone is off, sir.
So I guess The thing is that we were not aware that we had a legal interest in the property until very recently, when we started receiving land development permits and bylaw modification information as letters that came to our attention, that which ultimately we knew that somebody had bought that land, but that wasn't distributed throughout. When somebody buys the land around the lots, we don't start looking into it other than the notification from the, I think what happened was, is we received notification by email from the auction mart, the auction group that sold the land. And they said, by the way, these are the list of individuals that bought all the lots in your area. So what ended up happening there was, we didn't know we had any sort of interest or legal interest in the property. So the interest that a homeowners association had at the time was, who's going to maintain that lot over there? Who's going to cut the grass? Because we don't want the grass to be 2 or 3 feet tall. So that was why Ms. Hafso sent that email over to the landowner, to you guys off the bat. But the issue that I see there, and I expressed it in my letter, is that when you purchase land, you typically would look at the land title and see that there's an encumbrance on there and that there is a restrictive covenant on there. And it would be up to, I believe, the landowner, the purchaser, to research that information, and it's incumbent upon them to come to us and say, by the way, you have this on here. You either need to get it removed, or we need to have some architectural controls that would be reasonable for a commercial establishment put on here. So basically, we should have had a lawyer involved immediately. That was not done. And until we were notified of the actual land development permit itself and what people wanted, what somebody wanted to put on there, that's when we started to make a fuss.
Okay, so to my point, it's been a year and this conversation has not happened. What is 3 months going to do?
Well, it will allow us, because I'm new to the homeowners association, so is my wife, and I think we need to sit as a group so that we can actually update the legality of the land title, number one, and assign an appropriate set of architectural guidelines for a commercial building there. And that 3 months will allow us the time to create this document, and it will also allow us the time, hopefully, for Mr. Hugo to address our community in a meeting and explain outside of this venue to as many people as he can what he plans to do with that facility and what the plans are and how he's going to mitigate any issues.
Okay. Arne.
Yeah, thank you. Just an additional question. You do agree, though, that lot sold designated through the area structure plan as a storage lot by public auction at whatever the date was, and that was public knowledge. That was not being kept from anyone. Everyone had the same access to that information at that time. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's in terms of planning, that's a difficulty in terms of changing that. Now, just as it would be difficult to change, let's say a building site that was sold in that regard. So, I think there's various things that can be done in terms of restrictions, but it's a difficult thing to make changes after the fact. But I'm just speaking my own opinion on things at this point.
I understand that point. Advertising that it's for a storage lot really doesn't have anything to do with us. It's a discretionary use, and a discretionary use would be able to use it as a storage lot area. You could also put many other types of businesses there, and it could be purchased for that purpose. I don't think the advertising is really an issue as to what was in somebody's mind when they went to purchase it or went to auction. Because you could always run water in there, you could run power in there, and you could put other types of facilities in there.
Except the plan that's in place does have significance in terms of all of those things.
The area structure plan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that storage facility was put in there, drawn into the diagram as part of the development package that was presented to the county way back in early 2000s, and was ratified in 2003. But then again, that was 20 years ago, and all these, a number of those issues and plans do not apply anymore, and needs to be revamped, is what I was speaking to before. So I don't see that particularly as something that we should even be discussing at this time. I think what we should be discussing at this time is, what does the community need? What does the community want? And this is something that we've got a significant opposition to. And the county has the ability within the bylaws, and I expressed them in my second letter, that you can flat out refuse the development permit for no particular reason at all. And I think that we have, a family here that has invested some money in that land. There's options in the future potentially for us to purchase the land from him, or the homeowners associations, condo associations to repurchase it from him potentially, or some private people to purchase it from him, to prevent this thing from going up there. That's an opportunity. And I mean, it's been presented by a few people, let's just buy it from them. The problem is that we don't have any communication on the go here right now. And the only venue that we've had so far to discuss this issue is here, in this location here at this building. And right in the bylaw, the county can say, Mr. Hugo, you need to have a meeting with these people, the homeowners associations, the condo associations, and determine whether or not at those meetings, what's at stake here.
So my question to that comment is, yes, we can put all of these conditions on, but are you going to have the communication? You've had a year, and all you're doing is spitballing back and forth. Well, he said, no, you need to make it happen. You've had meetings, I understand, and Mr. Hugo is a resident out there. Why has he not been included in these meetings? The communication is on you guys.
I didn't set that up.
Holly,
can somebody
you
else
had a
answer that?
question. Can I just speak from here? No, you need to. Holly has a question, and then you can introduce yourself, ma'am. Okay.
I just wanted to say,
your name,
Holly
please.
Hafso.
Thank you.
Sandpiper homeowners and resident. I just wanted to say that when you state that was in the long plan, if the purchaser had gone and actually checked what the zoning was for that property, he would have realized that it wasn't zoned property, that it wasn't designated for a storage site. So he's at fault as well. Before you buy a piece of property, don't you legally go check what it's zoned at? He assumed it was a storage because that's what was scratched on the papers and in the long-range plan, yes. But in 20 years, we've had a new storage facility expand. We don't need storage out there anymore. And the one that's there has room to expand, and it's in a much better location. So I understand all the legalities, but it's not the place for it. We already have storage. If it's something we didn't have, but we have storage out there, and we have the capacity to expand that, it's in a much better location than what it is now. So, that's, when you say it's the first you've heard, you know that there was outcry when you guys wanted to rezone that. We said, no, we don't want that as storage. It doesn't belong there. You went ahead and rezoned it because you felt you had to for the area structure plan. But my understanding was it was discretionary. So you guys can make the decision if there's this much opposition to a parcel that more has to be discussed.
So just to clarify that MPC, the group around the table, have to follow sound planning practices. We can't just say no. We have to have sound planning reasons to back that up.
Well,
I'm just sharing that.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, obviously anything can't just go anywhere. You have to use some common sense as well. If it's not wanted by the community, why would you consider allowing it if we can make some kind of other arrangement with them? So I guess that's why we're asking for the time today. Let's sit down with Mr. Hugo and see what some other options are.
MPC, are there any, come to the front, please. State your name and then your comments and questions, please.
Kim McClelland. I was just going to respond to the question of what, if we, regarding the meeting and being invited, we had sent out a letter to all homeowners associations and condo blocks in the resort to let them, to advise all their homeowners that we were having a meeting on a certain date. So it should have been sent out to every resident at the resort regarding that meeting. So they should have had.
Thank you.
Yes, so they should have had awareness of that.
All right. Thank you for that. Mr. Hugel, did you have any comments to that invitation?
Yeah, so I think my role as in this instance, my role as a resident versus my role as the representative sandpiper kind of vary in this. So yes, I'm a member of our homeowners board. We didn't receive any communication regarding that, nor is it our condo boards. Our condo board doesn't have any interest in what happens with sandpipers HOA. I live in a different block. As a resident, yes, I saw the Facebook posting, but I think, you know, if you're talking about inviting, there was no invite to come speak.
Thank you. Dan.
I had a quick question, comment you made, Mr. Archer. You said the area structure plan's 20 years old and it's outdated and we should ignore it. I guess the question is, what other municipal development plans, area structure plans, what other planning should we ignore when we're making our decisions?
You know, there are things going on in our community that we would like to expand on. One of them is to put a bike path in, a walking path, which will connect with the path out there. That's going to be $1 million or more. You know, that's the type of community planning that we're doing. But it's obviously, when you read through that entire area structure plan, it does not make sense for today. We have a golf course in town. Nobody's going to spend $10 million on a golf course at Lake Newell Resort. We have a very busy Alberta campground across the street. That competition is amazing over there. There's not going to be a private campground going in. We don't need any more storage in the area. We have significant concerns about property values out there when we're looking onto this building and potentially a fenced-in area with some barbed wire on top of the fence and having a number of boats and other types of storage in there. Storage facilities are difficult to deal with in this community, in Brooks and elsewhere, in the industrial area in Brooks. The people want to store who knows what in there. They could store flammable things in there. No one's going to stop them from storing things in there like that. It is a dangerous business to be in. And these places can burn down. They burn down in Calgary off and on. They can burn down. We have houses right there. We have nothing between us. We have no fire barrier between this building and us. Whereas at least on the other side, where the other storage facility is, where they have their sea cans and stuff like that, if a fire started there, well, we have opportunity to fight that fire because it has to cross a road to get to the houses right now. And we have grass. We have grass that just goes straight through to our homes. It could burn down in no time if something were to happen. We have some serious concerns about the safety of it in that respect. There's no water going to the building. There's no plans for water going to the building. I expect he's probably going to put solar panels on the roof to get power so that he doesn't have to attract power in there. You know, there's a water facility that Todd was talking about that runs around it. That's really the only barrier for fire, but fire will cross that, no problem. So we've got all these problems, we've got all these issues. We have 68 people that have come forward and said, I'm signing on the dotted line here saying we don't want it. I think council's gonna, and there are options here, okay? There are options to put this aside for a few more months so we can actually put a commercial architectural set of controls in there so that we can have the building fit with the rest of our community. I mean, it's one thing to have, like we have one garage that is the same type of design. that is a tin building, and it sits in the park across the street from us in some trees. That is for the tractors and stuff to maintain the park and maintain the beach area. Okay, but that is, again, away from houses. I think they keep some vehicles in there and some tools in there. And it's just a tin building, and it's the same coloring that he's planning on putting on this building. But this building is 145 feet long. It's huge. And when we look out our windows from my front deck and from other people's side windows and front windows, and when the houses go in there, that's going to be their view. The back of this 145-foot building, as opposed to a prairie field and then houses behind it. It's going to seriously affect property values in the area, which is a serious concern, I believe, for the county. You have lower property values, you're going to have a lower tax revenue. It just does not make sense.
Okay, thank you.
I can go on for 2 hours if you want.
Yeah, thank you. Greg.
Yeah, I think there is definitely some communication that needs to happen between the homeowners association and the development. I think that it's important to keep these communication lines open, and I do understand that even though there was a year there, I do understand that there was not known that caveat was on title. I get that. You know, that's something that both of you didn't know that was there, and I do understand where this is a sensitive issue, and I think it's important for us as council. We want to make sure
as Municipal Planning
Commission, Municipal Planning MPC, that we give an opportunity for the two parties to have some time to talk, to have some time to communicate. And I think once we hear that, a lot of our questions can be answered. A lot of our concerns with respect to architectural design and that may be alleviated. That would be my recommendation with respect to this today. Just to keep those things there. I don't want a decision made without the parties having talked. I think that's would be not a good thing to do.
Adina, and then Holly.
Well, I just want to say something I'm really struggling with, because my understanding is this lot has always been designated, even though 20 years ago, and maybe it's outdated, but everybody knew that this was supposed to be some kind of business or storage. That's my understanding. The other thing is, Mr. Archer, he's full of a lot of could, maybe, a lot of speculation. And I'm really struggling with, because we got people sitting here today that are concerned about what we're trying to control. And so that's my concern, is how much control do we want to have over this man's property?
Thank you. Holly?
I guess in a similar vein, as a county of Newell, our tax base is pretty important, and we need businesses here to help pay our taxes. Without businesses running, we wouldn't afford many of the services that we have. So what does it say to someone who wants to buy property for a business? If they're going to buy land, then we're going to say, oh, no, we can't do that. It's going to turn developers away from the county of Newell. So that's the concern I'm coming from, is just we have to look for the good of the community, good of tax bases, good of business, big picture. And I'm really leery of telling people who have bought land that, no, you can't have the business you want, because if that was the plan.
Thanks, Holly. Mr. Beasley, and then I see Mr. Phillipson has taken the chair, so welcome. Go ahead, Todd.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know that I've done my job here today. I think you need to understand this isn't a development issue. This is an environmental protection issue. Okay. There is very real liability if anybody kills the northern leopard frog in that body of water. This isn't a case of putting this off for another 30, 90 days. This is a case of saying, is it acceptable at that location given the implications of it? You can simply go to the Alberta Environment website and you can
Thank you.
determine that they
We've
exist.
heard you.
Madam, this is liability.
We've heard you.
And I would
Thank
like
you.
that please
Arno?
registered on the record. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
You
very
bet.
much.
No, I'd just be curious, what other development, what other development or what other activity you're prepared to restrict on? In the interest of
Industrial
the frog?
activity by definition cannot put their effluent into the sanitary sewer.
Okay.
This effluent is going to the lake and into those bodies of water which contains species at risk. Arno, that's the differential.
Thank you. Now, Jeff.
Well, Arno's got a question. I'm trying to answer it, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm trying to be respectful, please. I'm trying
You're
to be very
going on.
respectful.
We've heard the environmental. We have a response. Jeff, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been making a few notes here because I just wanted to say a few things for information, and I think now is a good time to talk about drainage and effluent. There won't be any effluent because there won't be any water supplied or wastewater servicing to this site. So there will be stormwater. Stormwater, it is always the responsibility of the developer to ensure that pre-development and post-development runoff are no different in quality, in quantity, in speed of release. So that is a responsibility of the developer. Species at risk is not something that is regulated at the municipal level. Species at risk are regulated by Alberta Environment and Protected Areas. We do our due diligence in any application with any applicant to ensure that they are aware of their responsibilities, and we make it a condition of the permit that all federal, territorial, and provincial permitting and approvals are in place that are necessary and required. So any developer who is disturbing the ground, whether we're adjacent to Lake Newell, adjacent to a drainage ditch, adjacent to green grass, needs to do their due diligence and ensure that they are in line with the Species at Risk Act and the wetland policy and all of the other policies and acts that come along with Alberta Environment and Protected Places. So that's just kind of some information for MPC on the regulation of species at risk and where our responsibilities are at the municipal level.
Thank you. Mr. Phillipson, you had some comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of my own concerns clear before addressing some of your comments.
And just be mindful that we do have your letter in our package.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the first point was my concern over property values. I intend to develop a house directly east of this facility for myself and my family. So property values, I think if you use the example of the existing storage unit in Lake Newell, the only subdivision that has 0 houses built on it is directly adjacent to the existing facility. And the concern would be that this new development would impact the properties that are existing and to be built in Sandpiper Estates. My second concern is the safety. My backyard will be directly across from this. I have 2 small children. I prefer if they're not able to access storage facility, chain link fence, any other equipment that would be stored in there that contain chemicals or, basically heavy things and stuff that kids shouldn't be playing with. I prefer not to have to build a fence around my property, but that might be required if this is built. And then I'd like to address some of your comments. You had shown a concern over the communication between Mr. Hugel and the Homeowners Association. On the property title, it's very clear that there is restrictive covenants and encumbrances on this property. My opinion is that it's the obligation of the landowner to initiate that communication. It's not up to the Homeowners Association to start that communication. As someone who is intending to develop, they need to be well aware of any encumbrances or caveats on the land title and should communicate and take proper action for them to develop it. That's their obligation, not from the Homeowners Association. The area structure plan. The storage unit was mentioned only once in the area structure plan as an RV storage. So it could be argued that this self-storage facility is different to the intended description of an RV storage. I understand that there's nothing in the development permit that mentions RV storage, simply self-storage, and my opinion is that it's different. In response to Ms. Johnson's comment, I agree with you that we should not hinder development or economic prospects in the county. And I think that's the intention of the listed uses for the designations. Given this is a discretionary use, I think it's then for the committee to decide whether that fits in with the plans. And discretionary use then can be discussed if that fits under the county's plans. Whereas if it's a listed use, perhaps there's less of an argument one way or another to, hinder any developments. Regarding the area structure plan, there is the one mention of the RV storage. So if we were to, I guess, take the letter of the law, we should also take into account other mentions in the area structure plan. So a lot of the points in there have not been followed. One of the points in there is that the area structure plan is to be reviewed and updated every 5 years, which was not followed. It hasn't been done for over 20 years now. So I think just given that, it really takes away from legitimacy of the plan. And I think also that the proposed development doesn't follow the overall municipal development plan and the intent and the vision of the County of Newell, which takes precedence over the area structure plan. And my comments and views upon that are written in the letter that I had sent to you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neil.
Yeah, I agree with Greg on this one. This covenant caveat isn't going away. So I think it's more than important that the two get together at least for a couple meetings, because no matter how we decide today, the covenant isn't going away. It has to be dealt with.
Ellen?
Yeah, I heard today environmental concerns. Of course, there's the aesthetics, property value implications, traffic safety, fire hazards. This proposed development is in the middle of a residential area. I don't think it's suitable, and it doesn't serve the overall community. And I think that is also a thing that we should really take in consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have enough. Jeff.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a few things, obviously not for or against the development, just to put a few things into context for MPC and those others in attendance here. So the area structure plan is in effect, like it was mentioned previously, the area structure plan is referenced during all permitting operations, all subdivision applications, and any development happening within the bounds of that area structure plan. So there is a review, and it can be updated anytime by the county, by a member of the public, by a landowner, by a developer. So it is in effect. It is a bylaw that is in effect at the County of Newell. So we do need to take it into consideration when rendering decisions. I want to talk a little bit about the need for storage and the need for a service. That's really something that at a municipal level and when approving development, we don't consider. We don't consider the need for a service. That is at the developer's kind of area of consideration. An example would be, and I think it's pretty well known, there's always another development permit for a liquor store in Brooks, We don't need another liquor store. That's not a planning consideration. It's private enterprise, and developers are open to do what they can do under the rules of our bylaws, of our municipal plans. So that's just something that we don't consider at the municipal level, is the need for a service and the competition. We create the arena for developers to construct their business, and they take the risk and dive in at what they want to do. The restrictive covenant is an interesting thing, and then a little bit of background on what a restrictive covenant is. A restrictive covenant is the difference between municipal development approval and private development approval. Restrictive covenant is entered into by a group of people, in this case, the condominium association, and they are party to that restrictive covenant. And if I'm not mistaken, they likely have their own approval process for development out at Lake Newell.
Just for clarity, you used the word condominium association, you meant the homeowners association.
Yes, I think it is a condominium association, or is this a home? It's an HOA. There are condo associations
wanted
as well, and other
the public
blocks.
to be clear on that,
sorry,
Jeff.
mixing the words there. Yes, the homeowners association. So the enforceability of a restrictive covenant, well, you know, because this is a discretionary use, MPC does have the ability to consider it, does have the ability to take into account and look at it, and does have the ability to place conditions on the permit approval because it is a discretionary use. If this was a permitted use, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because MPC doesn't have that ability when it's a use by right. So we do have the opportunity to look at and consider the restrictive covenant, but we don't have the ability to enforce it. The only people with the ability to enforce a restrictive covenant on a parcel of land are those privy to the agreement, are the dominant tenant and the servient tenant. And in this case, these are all the landowners that are attached to that caveat. This lot was developed under the area structure plan. It does not have water servicing. It does not have sewer servicing. And it's not appropriate for a residential development currently as it sits today. Again, just back to the approval process, like I said, I'm guessing the homeowners association, I know some of the condominium associations in block 1 and other blocks have development approval processes that they follow within their own associations. We've reached out in the past, and we'd really like to communicate with those different associations that exist at Lake Newell Resort to, like I said earlier, one of our goals here is to educate and inform and make sure people are aware of what they need to do. We are in the business of making sure they go to Alberta environments and talk about species at risk. We're in the ensure that they know what the Historical Resources Act is, and that Public Lands deals with that. And if they are in an area that could be affected by that, they ask the right people the right questions. Just like we want to inform people that there are condominium associations or homeowners associations that you may be part of, and here's some other future steps that you may want to take. So we have opened up the conversation previously, and we'd love to open it up again to have us better inform residents of the homeowners associations and the condominium associations kind of requirements, and vice versa. When they go to the condominium association or the homeowners association, to give good information saying, hey, you do still need a development permit because you're building something on the property. I think there's been a lot of confusion surrounding that in the past. Again, just to clarify, this permit is for indoor storage only. So that's what we're talking about here today. Anything outdoor, outside of that building exterior, would require the benefit of an additional approval that would not be granted today. And the last thing I just want to say is, so this application under legislation, when we deem a development permit complete, we have 40 days to render a decision on that development permit, or it is automatically deemed refused. So that date is May 19th, where this permit would automatically be deemed refused. There is an option for MPC and the applicant to enter into a time extension agreement. I think that's what Mr. Archer was referring to, the 90 days, the 3 months, but that has to be mutually agreed to between the development authority, which is MPC, and the applicant to push that 90-day window. If either party doesn't agree to that 90-day extension, then the permit would be deemed refused on May 19th here, prior to the next MPC meeting happening, and it would be open for appeal at that time. So I think I've covered all my notes, but I can answer any other questions. Sorry for rambling.
Arno?
Just a question. I think we've heard some maybe specific, but also maybe some vague discussion about further discussion that wants to and needs to be had with regard to this between local residents and the applicant. Is there anything connected to approving this development permit that would get in the way of any of that? I guess I fail to see where approving this would prevent anyone in the room, I mean, you know, there are quite a few people in this room that have more experience with the business aspects of this than I do. This isn't our first rodeo, but is there anything that gets in the way of that happening if this is approved today?
Jeff has the answers.
Sorry, you know, in our opinion as an administration, we don't believe so. It could be approved. The restrictive covenant is not something that is dealt with and handled at this table. It is something that is handled in the courts. It is handled at the Court of King's Bench, and it wouldn't affect an appeal coming back to the county. Now, we still may receive an appeal whether we refuse or approve this development permit today. That's just the way things are. We're not going to safeguard ourselves against everything, and that's just the way it is. But you know, the dominant and servient tenants in this restrictive covenant agreement attached to these lands do have other ramifications and abilities to interject the development should it proceed without appropriate consultation within that group.
So the communication is inevitable. It has to happen, I would assume, between Mr. Hugel and the HOA, the residents of Lake Newell, eventually. Greg.
Yeah, so, yeah, and that kind of speaks to the point that I made, is that because it is in our, through MPC, it is in our power to put conditions on this permit. So I think in order to get those conditions correct, and looking at all information that's coming in, I think it is important for both parties to talk together so that we get those conditions. If that is something that can mutually be done, I think it is important for them to be at the table, because if this goes to appeal, there's only going to be more and more work. I think it's important that we do postpone this with the extend through MPC, extend that permit with the permission from Mr. Hugel, and get those two parties together and hash out some of these things, because and I do hear, for sure, it's not a question of need. Need is not part of this discussion. It is whether this particular project, this discretionary use, fits for that area with the conditions that we set on it.
Holly?
Sorry, Jeff, just one question environmentally. What are the environmental conditions if, like, whether or not the northern leopard frog is there or not, or sort of spotted leopard frog of some kind? If it's there or not, the conditions, how does that work if someone says there is?
Okay, so Alberta Environment lists a database that really identifies where species at risk are located, have typically been located before, and if they are located on a location where you're building, you have the responsibility to go out and do your due diligence and make that inspection. Now, much like wetlands, whether or not the database says they're here or they're not here or they aren't here, you still have a responsibility every time you put a shovel in the ground to make sure you're not disturbing species at risk. So the best thing to do is get in touch with the Alberta Environment and Protected Areas Office. Let them know that what you're doing, what your plans are, and they are definitely there to help guide and assist people in these application processes. Like I say, they are the ones with the regulations. They're the ones that talk about stormwater runoff and quality of stormwater runoff into some of these areas, these wetlands, as Mr. Beasley alluded to, these other drainage courses where these things habitate. We, as the county, it must have been in 2010, 11, maybe even before that, 8 or 9, we ran into northern leopard frogs at a culvert crossing we were doing at Bow City. And it is a quite involved process when you find habitat and you actually find these species habitating there to, mitigate, remove, and actually in some instances relocate the habitats when work needs to proceed. So it is a fairly onerous process. And like I say, every developer, no matter if you're putting up a garden shed, if you're building a storage facility, if you're building a French fry factory, you have the responsibility to deal with the environment as per the Act. And that is wetlands, species at risk, and a whole host of other things that Alberta environment regulates.
Thank you, Jeff. That's good information for everybody here today. Arno.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. Greg, I agree with your concern with regard to better communication, but that's not also really our bailiwick, and I'm not going to say too much about that because I might say something I regret. But I understand that with regard to our what we have provision to do, that we could extend this 90 days if the applicant agreed to that. And I guess I would ask the applicant is if maybe come to the
Mr. Hugo, please.
Mr. Hugo, and are you amicable to a 90-day extension in the interest of, I'm going to say, communication? I hesitate to go there because I have a lot of respect, both sides, for the fact that people have come in to express their concerns, but also for the fact that we all own private property. And there are planning restrictions that are in place that dictate the understanding with which we purchase and deal with things. And I think that's pretty important to the Municipal Planning Commission. So I guess in the interest of trying to move this forward, would you be amicable to a 90-day extension? And then we're not going to put restrictions on that. That's up to the adults in the room to get their heads together.
Yeah, indeed. Something I'd have to discuss with my partners, who obviously aren't here today. I assume that is a decision that doesn't need to be made right this moment. But we are obviously invested in this. So if that's what needs to take place, I guess just concern lies in some of the concerns that residents have brought forward, and I think some of them have been a little grossly over-exaggerated in terms of, this is a locked building. And I can have some concerns about the restrictions that the HOA will ask us, and just concern over cost and that killing the project. So absolutely, I'm okay with meeting with them. But I think we've seen from some of their letters that their asks are big. They're big asks that they're asking of us. So that's my concern. Again, yes, to answer your question, I am open to extending. I would be happy to meet with them. Again, haven't been invited to anything up to this point, but doesn't mean that can't happen going forward.
Jeff, we do have that May 19th deadline.
Just to clarify, Shanley mentioned something that's up to 3 months. So we don't need to extend it for the full 3 months, in the effort to be expedient and have people carrying on with their business. We can extend it for any period of time up to 3 months is what we have the right to do under our land use bylaw.
Okay, Neil.
There were some pretty compromising comments in favor of you made by these people. It wasn't all negative. Like, there is room to move here.
Oh, I agree. I just think in terms of the concerns that were brought up and the asks, they will be very cost prohibitive in terms of this development.
Okay. MPC, I'm going to draw you back to your agenda, and to staff have laid out 3 options to us. Option 1 being approved development with the list of conditions, and I want to remind you that you can add more conditions. Option 2 would be to refuse the development permit. Option 3 would be to table the development permit for more information. I'm just, what are your wishes? Jeff has a comment?
If the option is to extend, I would just make that clear in the motion that in agreement with the applicant, the motion is to extend the time
So that
frame
could
for
be option 4. Okay. Greg?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion for option 4 to extend up to 3 months.
Okay, that is your motion. Any further comments? Jeff has a comment.
Can we just say if 3 months is the time, extend for 3 months, not up to 3 months in the motion?
Yep, that's okay.
Dan?
We need to have approval from the developer side, right? Do we actually have full approval from the developer? Because he said he has his partner.
Thought I heard that, but we'll ask again.
Okay.
Mr. Hugo?
Yes, we will agree to that if that's what the council decides.
MPC today.
Or sorry, MPC. My apologies.
A little bit confusing. Okay, Jeff?
And I think we'll just request an email from Mr. Hugel or something formal that we can put on file that he is in agreement with that extension. We have the motion from MPC. I think that covers 50% of it, but just an email and we can deal with that after the meeting, I think, and just put it in the file because we do have till the 19th.
Okay.
Just a comment, I'll agree with the motion, but I would, in terms of consideration, 1 month might be better. This isn't a new issue for anyone, really. I think that we need to get this resolved as quickly as we can in the interest of the landowner. Yeah. And so I would implore everyone involved or with an interest in this the horse has got a saddle on it, so let's get in the saddle, yeah.
So I'm going to speak against the motion. I think that 3 months is too long. I think that this issue has been lit up for at least 2 months now and nothing has happened. And that's disappointing. I'm voting against the motion for that reason. Dan?
I agree with that. Looking at the calendar, a 3-month extension on this puts us into August, which is our break. So it puts us into early September. And that's just 3.5 months to solve something that can be done in a 2-hour conversation. He needs to know what the architectural design should look like and then what's that going to cost him. So the conversation between the HOA and the developer shouldn't take that long. So yeah, I'm in favor of postponing this until that conversation's been had. But it certainly doesn't need 3 months. So I'd be in favor of something much more short-term.
Holly?
Greg, are you willing to amend your motion to a shorter timeline?
Do you have a proposal, Holly, for Greg to consider?
I would like to see it brought back in a month before summer.
Yes, I can amend the motion to that as long as that fits with the developer.
Mr. Hugo? 30 days?
Yeah, that's fine. I guess ideally, we've been in this process for quite a long time already. We were hoping for a decision one way or the other today, just given that we've been sitting on this property for a long time and have our development proposal in front of county. But again, if that is what the MPC would like done, then 30 days.
Okay, and again, you may not agree with everything that they have to say, but you will have done your due diligence, done your environmental scan, if you will, as far as your community goes. And I think that would show MPC a great consideration. Arno, you had a comment?
Just to say that I think from my perspective on the record, I would implore everyone to get this figured out in the interests of the landowner as quickly as possible, and also to say that I don't think I have heard real compelling reasons not to approve this development permit, other than the fact we're providing delay in order for the local group to communicate, and those aren't personal opinions. I'm just looking at what our job is here, and what we've heard. That's not a personal opinion.
Mr. Hugo.
Sorry, and I guess I would just like to clarify, does the MPC, sorry. I guess I would like to know what they would like to come out of that meeting between us and the HOA.
Good question. Very good question. Because you can go and get a whole list of things, and we can be right back here in 30 days with the same.
Yeah, because I believe they've made their concerns and asks clear already.
It's a good question. Dan, you have a comment or a question?
The way I see it, we approve the development permit, and from what I've been explained, the relationship between the homeowners association and the developer is that once we approve the development, now it's on you and the HOA to come up with an agreement. So they can kibosh your plans for, we'll say, well, in this length of time, whatever it turns out to be, 30 days, find out what they're going to require of you once we approve it, if that's the way it goes. And if you're in a discussion with them, their requests are intense, way over the top for your business, you might decide, pull the permit and give up. But you might say that, okay, I can do that, and we'll come back and deal with it in the 30 days or whatever it is. That to me, from my understanding of the way this is going, that's what I would see coming out of this. You would, if you come back in the 30 days and say, I want this permit, then we would approve or deny. If otherwise, you would come back and say you've pulled your permit, no request.
So I have a question maybe for you, Dan. How does that change? The communication has to happen, and it will happen. Whether we approve this today or not, it's going to happen. So how does 30 days make a difference? Seriously, because they've had time already. So that's where I'm at. That's where I struggle with this whole thing. I saw Holly, then I saw Neil, and then I saw Lynette.
I guess just a little confused about conditions, if like for fencing and that, if we, there's been different asks in here. We've got the HOA, they say they have this control. I'm just confused about who has what controls, and I guess that's where I'm looking for clarification.
So time would be a benefit to you, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because then it'd be something, this is what they want, not letters and different things, and we have this right or that right. It is a little confusing to sort through.
Okay, Neil?
Yeah, I think the two groups, change place with us. We have to respect private property rights. All of you own your own homes. We have to look after that. We also have to look after your concerns. It's got to be two groups coming together with a little bit of compromise from both sides. Like, this is not rejecting your idea, and it's not just caving because there's 30 people here. There was a step missed, which is important. And if 30 days, 3 months, I don't care what it is. Let's just get this done, because it'll make our job a lot easier, and it'll make you're all going to be heard, but somebody has to give a little, both of you have to give a bit.
Thanks, Neil. Lynette, and then Mr. Beasley, you'll come to the front, please.
My reasoning behind giving you a little extra time, if I understood correctly, Mr. Archer and the Homeowners Association don't have real criteria for a commercial building. They have criteria for homes, but not for the commercial. It seems like they want a little bit of time to set out some parameters, and that would be my only reason for giving them a little bit of time. And at that point, Mr. Hugo can decide whether he wants to go forward with what they're asking for. So that's my thinking on it.
Mr. Hugo, and then Mr. Beasley.
And just to that point, I think a concern for us lies in that those parameters haven't already been set. So they're going to be strictly based on our development and not, a commercial development as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think we have some concerns about that. And given that the HOA is made up of, residents who have those concerns, I hear what you're all saying.
It's very personal. Yep. I totally.
So it's just to clarify, a question, I guess, would be, so we meet, we don't agree, what happens at that point? And I think you kind of answered that, but I wasn't quite sure.
Then it comes back to MPC again for this same or similar conversation. And again, we are here to discuss sound planning practices. You all know what that means. Ellen.
That may be true, but we still have to look at the input that the landowners next door said and what concerns there are. And I think they are very legitimate concerns. And it's like we just put them under the rug.
I guess that would be your opinion. Thank you. Mr. Beasley is next, and then Mr. Archer.
No, it's okay. I'm all right. So
We do have a motion on the table as well. I want to remind MPC.
So, Madam Chair, this is a question, and frankly, the answer is for the record. So my question is, and this is a question to you, and I very much appreciate your earlier statement about species at risk and the fact that you confirm that there is the northern leopard frog out at Bow City.
Mr. Beasley, I'm going to ask you to sit down, and so you're not domineering over the person you're speaking to. And I would also ask you to address the chair.
Okay, no, I thought I did that by saying Madam Chair.
Yes,
okay, so
but you are speaking to me.
So my question is this. Now for the record, does Alberta Environmental Protection, Environment Canada, Species at Risk, and the Eastern Irrigation District have standing in terms of whether this development permit is valid or should be addressed or should be approved, given what their concerns may be? And at the end of the day, do you have the ability to impose an environmental impact assessment to confirm, in fact, that this development will not cause any harm to species at risk?
Thank you. Jeff, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So as a recommended condition of the permit, obviously all provincial, territorial, federal regulations and permits and approvals need to be in place. So if there is an approval required through Alberta Environment, and that would be found out by making contact with Alberta Environment and explaining what they're doing, looking at the area, and it may even mean soliciting an aquatic invasive or aquatic biologist, a species expert, to go out and take a look at it. That is not something that we dictate. Could we say you need to have an environmental study completed? Absolutely, we can. We could do that with any development that's of a discretionary nature coming in the county of Newell. However, we do rely on the regulators of those things to take care of what they're in charge of taking care of. And that is the wetlands, the species at risk. We lean on Alberta Environment. They protect the environment, and that's what we refer to.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have done my best. I just found out about this development literally 3 weeks ago. I never got anything in my mailbox. I've tried to get Alberta Environmental Protection to be part of this meeting today, and I physically haven't had the time to sit down with them to have this conversation. So my ask of the councillors are this: a month isn't enough time. I appreciate your comments about how we've been communicating with this over time, and by golly, we should be able to come to the table. This is a larger issue than I think the councillors have perhaps anticipated, and the bottom line is to get these groups in place. We have a proponent, we have an opponent. The opponent are going to be the ones who are going to go out and ensure that these people have a voice, and whatever communications and concerns they have, they're able to bring them forward either in writing or directly. 1 month is not enough, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Phillipson, you've come back to the table.
Yeah, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse here. I'm sure we're all ready to move on, but I just want to respond to your...
We do have a motion. Thank you.
I'll make this quick then.
Thank you.
Just in response to your concern about sound planning, I just wanted to mention a few points in the municipal development plan. On page 11, it says to ensure that industrial and commercial development is done in a manner that reduces conflict with other uses. Section 3.1 says land use decisions shall reduce the negative impact that commercial and industrial development has on existing land uses. Municipalities should support positive opportunities to diversify the local economy. This will be the second business facility in this area, the other of which is another storage facility. The following factors shall be considered when locating industrial and commercial development in the county: the compatibility of the proposed development with existing uses in the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am also going to vote against this motion. 30 days is not going to change anything. I'm taking the temperature of the room, and I don't feel that 30 days is going to do anything to help MPC either way. So I just wanted to put that out there. The motion is to table this for 30 days for more information and input from the HOA and the applicant. MPC, are there any further comments? Arnold?
I actually think there's no activity on our behalf tied to this motion. We're simply tabling for 30 days. Full stop. Anything changing is up to the people who have concerns to make things change. And I respect that.
I'm going to call the question. Oh, Jeff, thank you.
Just to clarify, can we make sure it says extension of the development permit and as opposed to tabling in the motion?
Okay, my verbiage, not Greg's.
Yeah, it's extension. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of Greg's motion of extending for 30 days? That is carried. That closes that conversation today. We will move along in our agenda package. Eight point 3, industrial solar facility, Shanna Lee. Thank you all for coming in, by the way.
Thank you.
Shanna Lee, thank
Development permit 2023024 is an application for the construction of an industrial solar facility. The AUC approved it in March of 2023. The project is located on approximately 320 acres of private agricultural cultivated dry land, and the construction will commence in September 2023. During construction, they're expected to employ 100 employees. There are no variances requested. The land lease includes a provision that builds a fund for the decommissioning and reclamation over the life of the project to ensure sufficient funds will be available at the end of the project. There was a response from staff, Stuart Lucchese, that he would like access points included into the emergency response plan. The applicant has responded that that will be in their revised plan. There was one response from adjacent landowner, Cardinal Energy, and with further discussions, they have no concerns with the project. We're recommending approval with conditions, and Mr. Carr is here to answer questions.
Good morning, Mr. Carr. Just light you up there. Yep.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for coming in. And we've met before? Yes. Okay, so no introductions necessary. We have the application in front of us. We have recommendations from staff. Are there any questions on this application? Holly.
It's actually just a question for you, Shanley, just in how it's structured, because it said there was no question, no concerns from County of Newell right before strategic relevance in your report, but you were listed later. So would it not show up there normally?
Go ahead, Shanley.
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. In your MPC report, right before strategic relevance towards the end, find it now, this is my notes. So you have Stuart Lucci's responded like access points, right? But earlier on, you say there were no concerns. So would that not show up as a concern, or are you rating it different?
Yep, go ahead, Shanley.
It was a concern, but we've alleviated the concern. Sorry for yelling.
So if you've alleviated it, then you're not including it. That's how you're doing it? Okay.
How do you wish to handle? Lynette?
I'll make the motion to approve the development. It was through AUC, so.
Option 1. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion? That is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Good luck with your project. Any other business? No post-agenda items? Any need for in-camera today, MPC? Seeing none, there's no information. Todd, do you have any questions in the queue for us?
Hello again. No, we have no questions in the queue.
Any questions in chambers today? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.